new episode of the show. I'm so excited that you're here. Today, we're talking about the concept of viewing creativity as a relationship. And I want to share why this is a helpful approach for creatives who are ready to let go of struggling with burnout, overwhelm, and the pressure of constantly having to put out creative work to please algorithms and the people around them. So let's get into it. If you're like me and you grew up in a Western capitalistic society, you have likely internalized the idea that creativity is only valid if you can make money with it. Otherwise, it seemed as a waste of time. And this is a very transactional and extractive way to look at creativity. And I think we all know what that feels like. It doesn't feel very good. But I think that from an early age, we are conditioned to view our entire lives through the lens of capitalism. Everything from how we view ourselves and others, our consumption habits, our labor, the environment, our achievements, and the things that we desire and want to accumulate throughout our lives. We live in a world that is dominated by linear thinking, productivity, hard work, and achievement, external validation, external measures of success, and the constant need for external validation by means of likes and follows. I think we are all familiar with how this is feeling lately. And this leaves very little room for anyone that doesn't meet these expectations, that doesn't align with these mainstream values. And this is where we really get into it as creative people, as deep feeling, empathic, intuitive, neurodivergent, multi passionate creative people of color. We really struggle with this way of thinking about creativity because it feels very linear, it's very neurotypical, it's very work obsessed, and it's a very cutthroat world that we're kind of entering into. And this is where we suffer. We are constantly battling feelings of inadequacy, guilt, and shame because we know we don't fit in, because we know that people don't understand us and they look at down on us. They think that we are naive, unrealistic, immature because we like creativity, because we are invested in creative pursuits. Then there's the added pressure of modern society with its algorithms and the likes and the follows. And there's this pressure to always have to be on and to be constantly putting out amazing work. And we want to keep people's attention. And it's just so hard to keep up with those sorts of expectations. All these factors that I just mentioned slowly start to push us towards higher levels of stress, anxiety, exhaustion. We start to feel unhappy, and ultimately, we end up burning out. This is how we end up feeling really lost and confused and unsure as to why we even got into this journey in the first place. We end up feeling consumed by external measures of success and other people's expectations. By this point, we are completely derailed from what we were supposed to be doing, what was supposed to be our unique creative path. So it's no surprise that we start to feel like we lost direction and we don't know what we were trying to achieve in the first place. And a lot of us who started out being really passionate lose that momentum, lose that fire, and we just give up. But what if there was a different way? What if we could go back to that beginning scenario that I was talking about and we could reframe the way that we understand creativity? What if instead of simply viewing creativity as a tool for us to get approval, external validation, profit, we started to see it more as a reciprocal relationship, a relationship where there's a give and a take, where the more that you put into it, the more that you get back. Just think about how differently you would approach your creativity. What would change? How would the dynamic between you and your creativity look like? If you're thinking, Renata, this makes so much sense. It sounds amazing. I'm on board. I want to shift the way that I relate to my creativity, but I'm not sure where to start. I want to offer some ideas to get you thinking, to get you started. And remember, you don't have to do everything that I say. You can pick and choose whatever feels right. You can, I say, go with one or two things max, because I think that it's just unrealistic to try to do all the things. So try to go with whatever feels easiest to start with. So here are some practical ways to put into practice this idea of developing a relationship with our creativity. Idea number one is about establishing a regular creative practice. And like any relationship in our lives, we have to make an investment with both our time and our energy to show up regularly. If we think about relationships that we currently have in our lives, whether it's with a friend or a loved one, we know what it takes to be in relationship with that person. We have to be checking in, we have to ask how they're doing so that they can ask us how we're doing, and so that there's an exchange and we can build a bond with that person. And it's going to be no different with your creativity. And this is where we are going to deviate from neurotypical advice to create our creative practice, because I think there's a misconception out there that every creative person is doing the same exact thing the same exact way, and that's just not the case. Everybody is doing things differently. We all have different goals. We are working with different mediums. We have different definitions of what success looks like. And so there's no way that everyone's routine can look the same. And this is without even thinking about like our rhythms, our natural levels of energy. A lot of us are very low energy people. And so all those things play a role in the kind of creative practice that you can create. I really want to encourage you to spend the time to experiment, to figure out what it is that works for you when it comes to a creative practice. And this is going to take time, because experimenting takes time, but I think it's really worthwhile, because we have to figure out what works for us to be able to do this regularly. Contrary to popular belief, you don't have to show up to your creativity every single day to be able to find success with it. I think that's another myth that we hear a lot, that you have to show up every single day or else you're not committed. And that's just not sustainable for the long term for many people. And so, again, I invite you to really think about what you need and whether this is something that you need to tweak in your routine, because maybe you've been trying to push yourself to show up daily, but you're like, you know what, I really can't. I don't have the the time or the energy to do this every single day, but I can commit to doing it once a week. And so just being honest with ourselves can help us to move forward in a way that is gentle, that is aligned with who we are, and that isn't based on some external metric that some random person told us that we had to follow. Idea number two is about filling your creative cup regularly. As we know, we can't give out from an empty cup. We have to regularly be taking in inspiration so that we can pull from all the different sources that we are consuming to be able to create unique, personal, and inspiring work. If we're not in a regular habit of inspiring ourselves, it's going to be really hard to make interesting connections for us to create unique work. So it's really important to experiment and see what it is that we like, that inspires us. And that can look like a bunch of different things. For me, I love listening to music. I love reading books, taking classes, journaling. When I'm thinking about my own thoughts and like the ideas are currently inspiring me to learn more, that's really interesting to me. And it has nothing to do with the art that I create. And I really enjoy that, because that allows me to explore things outside of my medium, of my world of creativity and art. And so one of the things that I discover along the journey for me has been that for the longest, people would say, oh, go to the museum. Like, that's one of the obvious things to do as a visual artist to get inspired. But I learned that just going to the museum isn't really for me. I have to go to a specific exhibition related to something that speaks to me, a topic or a subject matter that really matters to me for me to enjoy it. I would really encourage you to think about what it is that inspires you, and to make a list of those things so that you can do them consciously and remind yourself of the things that you know are going to work for you. Idea number 3 is about taking time to rest. And this is about giving yourself permission to step away from creation mode. This is going to give your mind and your body time to integrate the things that you're learning, the things that you are consuming. And when we don't make time to do this, it's really, really hard, nearly impossible to do it while we're also creating. For me, resting looks like many different things at different points, depending on whatever it is that I need. And so this can look like taking a nap, unplugging from my devices, going for a walk, meditating, anything where I don't have to produce anything. And for a long time, resting was really hard for me, if I can be honest. It's taken me many years of unlearning workaholism and constantly being on for me to feel more comfortable with the idea of rest. And I think this is not uncommon for a lot of us women of color who have been conditioned and brought up to be caretakers for others and to care for the house and do all the things, and never making time for us, or not having somebody encourage us to take time off. I really encourage you to take time to step away from creating, because you can't do this if you don't take breaks. Especially if you want to do this for the long term, you need to be able to step away and be human and take in life and the world and be able to enjoy yourself. And that's going to require that at times you're going to have to put things on pause, and they might take a little bit longer. They might change because you took time away, but that is partly what we need to do to allow things to be what they're meant to be, and for us to discover the things we need to discover. And sometimes we can't let that happen if we're constantly changing and trying to make things perfect the way we think they should be. And that's where we also lose that love and that joy with the creative process, because we're trying to control it. Okay, we are now at the end of this episode. And to recap, today we talked about the impact of Western and capitalistic society on our view of creativity. We also talked about common struggles as deep feelers, empathic and neurodivergent, multi-passionate creatives. We also discussed how we lose sight of the bigger picture with our creativity when we focus on productivity and working really hard, and how we can start to move towards a healthier approach with our creativity by viewing it as a relationship. And lastly, we talked about 3 different things that you can do to start developing a relationship with your creativity. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with others who you think might benefit. I love to hear your thoughts, your experiences, so feel free to DM me through Instagram at Renata McElveny. And until next time, please stay in relationship with your creativity, and I will talk to you soon. Keep creating. Bye.